You got this. I believe in you. My name is Jay Cohen, and I am a cookbook author. I worked in some of New York's best restaurants and test kitchens. And now I consider myself the king of dinner parties. I'm obsessed with cooking for my friends. My goal is to create delicious, reliable recipes that are gonna make you an entertaining superstar. It's stunning, but so simple. Let's make this easy. Today we have two of my simplest but most crowd-pleasing recipes, starting off with a sheet pan gnocchi packed with eggplant and cherry tomatoes. The second is a jammy olive oil cake. Couldn't be any simpler, only uses one bowl. It is truly one of the most versatile cakes I have in my arsenal. We're gonna get started on the cake recipe first, mainly because it's gonna stay moist for days, so this is one of my favorite things to knock out and really have done and ready before I even start thinking about dinner. You're just gonna need one bowl, and we're gonna throw in 1 cup of granulated sugar, half a cup of light brown sugar, 1 cup of olive oil. Olive oil is gonna add so much beautiful flavor and moistness to this cake. I actually prefer oil-based cakes much better than butter. Butter obviously has tons of flavor, but oil gives the best texture. And olive oil has this beautiful acidity that both pairs beautifully with the raspberry jam, as well as it reacts with the leaveners for a super fluffy cake. Let's add 1 cup of low-fat Greek yogurt. This is gonna add that moistness. This is gonna add some extra tang. That being said, you could use any type of Greek yogurt, full fat, low fat, non-fat, even sour cream if you have. This cake is very forgiving based on what you have in the fridge. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Also, you can switch it up. Sometimes I throw in almond extract, sometimes I throw in a combination of vanilla and almond or lemon extract. Really, any type of flavoring you want is gonna be beautiful in this cake. And then we're gonna zest in 1 teaspoon of lemon zest. I find that a little bit of citrus pairs so well with the olive oil and the jam. While I have a lemon with me today, you could do lime, grapefruit, orange, whatever you have on hand. And last but not least, 2 large eggs. And then we're just gonna whisk all of our wet together. This is one of my favorite go-to cake recipes. I find like the best thing I've always thought of when it comes to baking is that it's very close to like being a software engineer and coding. And when you think about it, you have these big chunks of codes that react to create some kind of process. And when you have a great base for a cake recipe, you can then take it in 1,000,001 different directions and start to switch out the flavors, start to switch out the mix-ins. But I find that this right here, this core recipe, it's perfect. And like I said, you can do this any time of day. This kind of began a few years ago. I made it once just to have something sweet on the counter, and it went so fast that I ended up baking like 1 a week for easily like 3 months before we had to kind of like chill on how much counter cake we have. I always compare it to like this idea of grandma hospitality, which is like whenever I would go over and visit my grandmother or any of my aunts, there's always something sweet on the counter because you never know who's gonna stop by and you always wanna give them a little something. And this is kind of that ideal recipe for that. What I will say about this recipe is that this should be your gateway cake recipe. Most people are so afraid of baking. They're like, oh, I'm a great home cook, but I'm not a good baker. This is the recipe to start at. Everyone who always makes it comes back and they're like, I never thought I could bake a delicious moist cake, and they always are blown away. So this is gonna be the day you bake the best cake you ever have, even if you've never done it before. That's our wet. Again, a very forgiving recipe. We didn't actually kind of like go in stages. We threw everything together, whisked it up, and now we're gonna add all our dry and get the batter done. I'm gonna throw in 2 cups of all-purpose flour. The one thing I will say, if you're a beginner baker, to remember when it comes to measuring flour is you should never be sticking your measuring cup into the bag of flour because that's gonna compact it up. I really, really believe the only way you should measure flour is with a scale. I go with 135 grams per cup, so 270 grams for this recipe for 2. And in the end of the day, you're gonna have a perfect, consistent cake every time. So if you don't own a kitchen scale, invest in it right now. To the flour, we're gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and a half teaspoon of baking soda. As always, instead of mixing or drying ingredients separately, I just pile them on top. I'm gonna use my rubber spatula, give them a little mix, and then start to fold it all together. The key with a beautiful cake is making sure that you incorporate the flour fully, but you don't overwork it. So really, we're just looking for no more streaks, and that's how you know you're ready to throw it into your pan. This recipe actually inspired one of the more, I would say, avant-garde dishes in our household. My husband loves this cake so much, he makes this dish that he calls yogurt cake, which is sometimes in the morning, he'll just take a slice and mash it into a bowl of yogurt, and it's like the parfait of his dreams. So, also highly encouraged for breakfast snacking. Okay, beautiful. We have no more streaks of flour. This cake batter itself is gonna be a little lumpy, but that's kind of good. We want a little bit of lump, but what we don't want are kind of big chunks of flour or to overwork it. So when we come back, we're gonna throw it in our pan and swirl in some beautiful raspberry jam. Get this baked. Welcome back. We have our cake batter here, and let's get this in the oven. So what I have is a 9-inch square baking pan. I lined it with parchment to make sure there's overhang on all sides, which is gonna make it so easy. Just pull this cake out when it's done. And we're gonna throw our batter right in. I find that high-fat cakes like this one, especially one that uses olive oil, it's gonna be super moist and it's actually not gonna stick at all, especially when we have that parchment to pull out, so I don't even bother greasing. Just gonna spread the batter, make sure it's nice and even. We're gonna swirl in half a cup of raspberry jam. Listen, you can use any type of jam you want. This cake can take it all. You could do apricot preserves, strawberry, grape, marmalade, really whatever you have in your pantry, in your fridge, it's gonna work. Also, you can start to get creative. Since I'm using raspberry jam, sometimes I'll also swirl in some peanut butter for a little PB&J action. Olive oil cake goes really well with chocolate, so swirling in some chocolate hazelnut spread is also lovely. Really take this cake as the base to whatever type of swirled olive oil cake you want to create. I'm just going to kind of dollop bits all around. And then using a knife or a little offset spatula, we're gonna swirl the jam in lightly, and it's gonna create this gorgeous marbling effect that, again, everyone's gonna lose their mind because they're gonna see this cake and be like, that's so gorgeous. And little do they know, it was just a one-bowl cake with a little bit of jam from the fridge swirled in. That's the best kind of recipe, is the one that's sneaky and incredibly stunning, but takes no time or effort. The key is you don't want to over swirl the jam because we really want those gorgeous, distinct red swirls that are gonna be so stunning when this cake comes out of the oven. We're gonna pop this into a 350-degree oven for 40 to 45 minutes, just until it's golden brown and reaches an internal temperature of 190 degrees. The two things you need in your kitchen if you want to be a great baker, a kitchen scale and an instant read thermometer. Ooh, does this smell incredible? All right. Our cake is done. We're gonna let this cool completely before we slice it. And meanwhile, we're gonna get going on our gnocchi. Let's make this sheet pan gnocchi. It is so ridiculously quick to throw together, and there are infinite ways in which you can customize it based on what you love or what you have in the fridge. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna knock out any of our knife work, starting with one eggplant. I'm just gonna cut into 1/2-inch pieces. I absolutely love roasted eggplant. I mean, I love all eggplant. I love eggplant when it's fried, when it's baked, when it's grilled. I love the eggplant emoji. I love all kind of eggplant. What I'm doing here is I'm using the roasted eggplant as a base with cherry tomatoes to cook down into this beautiful sauce to coat our gnocchi. Since we're doing this all on one pan, the only thing is you want to find ingredients that are going to cook in the same time as our gnocchi and tomatoes. So eggplant works great, zucchini works great, asparagus works great, peppers work great. Anything you like will probably work in this. So the inception of this recipe is quite simple. It's that anytime I want to throw a pasta party, and that's pretty often, I don't want to be tied to the stove, or I don't want to be like having to cook our pasta and serve it a la minute, and then people are coming late or XYZ. I wanted to make something that was going to be so easy to throw together that can really like kind of hold its own for a bit, and the leftovers are just kind of like the most incredible meal prep that I've ever done. And I kind of got onto the whole idea of like using uncooked store-bought gnocchi in the oven with cherry tomatoes, and it became this incredible base foundation for 1,000,001 variations on baked gnocchi. This is by no means authentic Italian gnocchi, but again, I'm not an authentic Italian, so I fell in love with the whole concept of using store-bought gnocchi, not boiling it, but instead throwing it on a pan with all of your ingredients and just baking it in the oven until it's crispy and tender. It is the foundation of so many incredible, easy weeknight dinners for me. Now that we have our eggplant, we are going to slice up some garlic. I've got 6 giant cloves, but that's not going to be anything I'm going to complain about. You could use as much or as little garlic as you want. I am a garlic fiend, so the more the merrier. I'm just thinly slicing our garlic here to throw in. That being said, if you don't have garlic, you could do a minced shallot, a little bit of onion. You could use garlic powder. This is really a recipe that can take whatever you have and whatever you like. And the best part is that is the only moment in which you're gonna need your knife. Now that our eggplant and garlic are prepared, when we come back from the break, we're gonna just throw the rest of the stuff on and get this in the oven. Welcome back. We're about to get our sheet pan gnocchi in the oven. So I have my chopped eggplant and sliced garlic, and to that, we're just gonna throw in everything else and mix it together. So I have 2 pounds of cherry tomatoes. The reason I love this recipe is that we're gonna just use these whole cherry tomatoes, no need to slice them, and they're going to roast in the oven until the sweetness is nice and caramelized, and all those juices kind of pop out and create this jammy sauce. And then the star of the show, store-bought gnocchi. Shelf-stable, sometimes you'll find it in the refrigerated section, but you don't even have to boil it. We're gonna throw this on, and between the moisture from the tomatoes and the heat from the oven, they're gonna get nice and crispy and tender with one less step. And now we just need to season it up. So I'm gonna be doing 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. We just want to add something a little acidic. I love balsamic here. You could also use lemon juice. You could use red wine vinegar, whatever you have on hand. And then we need a little bit of sweetness that's going to help bring out all of that beautiful flavor in the tomatoes. So 2 tablespoons of honey. Now we're going to drizzle this all with a 1/4 cup of olive oil and 2 big pinches of salt and pepper. And now get your hands in, and we're just gonna mix this up until it's nice and incorporated. So the big takeaways, as I've kind of mentioned throughout while we've been making this, is use what you have on hand and use what you love. So I use dried oregano. You could throw in any spices you have. You can make this spicier if you want. You can omit it if you're making this for kids. I'm using just kind of like sliced garlic as my main aromatic, but you could also throw in capers. You could throw in olives. You could throw in really whatever is kind of like inspiring you in the kitchen. I'm gonna finish this with fresh basil in the end, but you could also throw in tons of fresh herbs right now. Say you have a bunch of fresh oregano, use that instead of dried. This recipe is this kind of like really great starter for using up whatever you have in your fridge or your pantry. And as you can see already, it makes a nice amount, which is perfect because A, it's a very easy main dish to serve for a crowd, but also it just is so good days later. So it's one of my favorite meal prep dishes. So we just want to make sure everything is nice and evenly coated, and we're just going to press it into an even layer. It's going to be a little crowded, but that's actually kind of what we want because we want it to become nice and saucy. The top's going to get crispy. Everything's going to be tender and delicious. It's really going to be an excellent dish. We're gonna pop this into a 425-degree oven for about 30 minutes. We're just looking for the gnocchi to become nice and golden, for all those cherry tomatoes to kind of pop open and blister. It's gonna look amazing, smell amazing, and it's very easy then to finish it up. When we come back, we're gonna pull our gnocchi out and give everything a try. We are back, and the gnocchi smells so good. This whole kitchen is perfumed from the tomatoes and garlic. We're about to pull it out, and we're gonna get everything plated so we can try it. Gorgeous. So immediately, as soon as it comes out of the oven, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just toss it all together. I wanna start to kind of break up the tomatoes and let it get a little juicy. It's gonna get all of that gnocchi kind of sauced up. Oof, so good. We're gonna get this into a bowl and finish it off with some basil and pecorino. The beauty of lining this cake pan with parchment, it transfers so easily. And now I'm just gonna slice this into squares. I go 4 by 4 for 16 pieces. If you want a bigger or smaller slice, you do you, but I've always gone back for a second. Everything's all done. I cannot wait to dig into this gnocchi. No one's gonna believe how easy it is. This honestly tastes like you just like worked so hard, made this gorgeous sauce, took all this time and TLC when really it was a dump and bake situation that couldn't have gone any better. It's gonna be a staple, I promise you. And look how much it made. This is like the perfect dish for a party. And then of course we have our cake. Look at that. The little pockets of jam. The crumb on this is so unbelievably delicate. This is a moist cake. You get that little hint of brightness from the lemon zest. The raspberry jam and the olive oil go so well together. This is my dream with like a cup of coffee in the afternoon. I know my husband cannot wait to mash this into his yogurt tomorrow morning. But either way, you have 2 new recipes that you're going to go crazy for, and everyone you love is gonna go crazy for. Most importantly, I say this all the time, but like, I believe in you, you got this. But for these 2, you really got this because they're so simple. Take tons of pics and tag me at Jake Cohen, and I'll see you next time.